Hello everyone. If you want to go to my free course, type henry-ward.co.uk into Google, then go to Henry Ward Trading, and then this here is my free course. Click on Start Today. If you want to go on to the webinars that I do every Sunday and every Wednesday, click on Trading Academy and then click on Start Today. So this is the Trading Academy. This is the full training, the webinars, direct access to me, everything that you want. Okay, cool. So we'll start off here with sort of the Nasdaq. So we've entered the market here. So our entry or stop loss. So we've entered the market here and we're looking for this to continue going down. Now the futures market has been a little bit all over the place so far. So we had this massive spike to the upside. So we're down to the 4 hour. We had this this sort of little bit of a run to the upside. It continued, and then we had this big bar here. And then since it hit that ceiling there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we talked about this on one of the webinars, and I think it was a Sunday webinar about a break and retest. And I come back and retest this area. And then we've had a pretty big sell-off at that particular point. Now I say sell-off and I'm pretty big. It's I'm paraphrasing here. It's in the futures market and the real market hasn't opened up yet. So it could turn around and go back up. But anyone who has that trade running now, we're about 2 to 1 up. We're getting very close to being sort of 2 to 1 up at the moment. And again, like I said, everyone who is in this trade, manage your trade as you see fit, whether it's closing profit, whatever it's doing. So we're actually 1.8 at the minute up on that particular trade. So 1.8 on our entry. Let me have a quick look what it says here. 1.25 here on this. I know our entry is a little bit different on eToro, but at the minute we're 1.8 up on that particular trade because the bar is slightly different to our entry and I give a slightly different management. But at the present moment, that is running quite nicely. And we have had 1, 2, 3 days of sideways movements. We've had a pop to the upside today and then potentially back down. And it's just one of these things we have to hold fire and see how this trade goes. So some people will have already jumped out of this trade. Some people will continue with it. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't get down in around here. And if it gets down around there, then we can start looking at our take profit. Well, I'll be looking at my take profit. I have lots of weird background noises. It's the window's open, so I'll close the window. Hopefully that helps out. Thanks for the heads up. So yeah, so we have popped the upside. So it's one of those things now we just have to wait and see what happens with this. But again, I don't see any reason why it should turn around. S&P is very, very similar. It popped back up. It's not as far down on the risk to reward as the likes of the Nasdaq is. But again, we still have some momentum on the downside. If we look at this, we have that horizontal there. So bounce, retest, bounced again. So we had a stronger level here than on the Nasdaq. If we go down to the 4 hour, we had a stronger level there on the 4 hour for this retest. Did anyone take any of those retests short, whether it's Nasdaq, S&P, or the Dow? Short position, the entry will be under that inside bar. Entry will be under that inside bar and above the horizontal level. And at our current state right now, we would have risked maybe 1.3 up, so we risked 0.9, and we are at 1.18, so it's 1.3 to 1 on this particular one if we had taken that. Yes, it would have been aggressive. Yes, it would have been very aggressive with the size of this bar. But again, it's come back, hit its head, and we're looking for a change of direction to the overall momentum to go in a particular direction. And that's all we're ever looking to do. Same with the Dow. If we look at the daily chart, come back down, popped up beautifully. Again, hit this level, 1, 2, 3 touches, 4, and come up perfectly and touch that level. We drop down to the smaller time frame. And again, it gives us the exact same entry, shorter than this one. Did anyone take those positions? Now it's 0.58, so 0.6. The money were there, and at this one will be 1.86 to 1 up at the moment. The equivalent of this trade here will be the same up as our Nasdaq trade that's been running for almost a week now. I assume by everyone's silence that no, you guys didn't take that. You're in the Nasdaq at 1160, 1164. Okay, so did you do a limit order at that, Shane? So a similar trade, but as in a limit order. Taken on the Nasdaq, you want your stop loss above that, and the Nasdaq at the minute is 1.4. Yeah, I'm up 38%. Okay, well done, Shane. Good. Now, do we expect this to continue going down, or do we think when the market's going to open at half two that this is going to turn around? Now, I'm only going to have a look at this phase one. Now look at this phase one. So we have one here, phase one there, phase one there, phase one there, phase one there, phase one, and now phase one. Now of those phase ones, what's the common theme that we're actually seeing? What's the common theme that we're seeing? They're getting lower, aren't they? Look, they're getting lower. All getting lower, every one of them. Now, the only other thing to be aware of is the highs. Okay, the only other thing to be aware of is the highs. Low, it's lower. That's a high, lower high, lower high. Now this one here, look, is a lower high, but then we have a higher high, and now a lower high. So in the bottom wise, It breaks the bottom every time. In the highs wise, it is only one of them that it has failed to break. So with that in mind, do we think it will break this level? Do we think it'll go lower than that? If we use the market structure that's already happening, if we use that already, do we think that it's going to continue going lower and actually break that low? Absolutely. By using the logic and using what's happened there. Seems to be highly probability, with a high probability that it will drop lower. Well done, Shane. Absolutely. Using what information we have there with the market sentiment, it looks like a high probability of it going on. Now, again, we cannot guarantee this. We cannot guarantee this. So if this starts to run and we have a high probability it's going to make a lower low, how then would you manage the trade? How then would you manage what's going on? With that in mind, if it does exactly what we expect to do, are you going to par close your position? Are you going to trade your stop loss? Are you going to let it run? Are you going to start moving the stop loss up into key areas? So in this particular one, okay, so clear all those drawings. So if you expect this to continue going, you expect this to continue going, your stop loss is there. Would we now move our stop loss just above that? Just say this bar was finished now. So just say the bar was finished. Would that be a good place to move our stop loss to? Yes or no? Someone said, yes, it's a free trade. Absolutely. What's the negative side of actually moving your stop loss there? What's the negative of having a free trade? Because theoretically, this looks like a really good idea. What's the negative of this? Is that if we get a bar to like today, so look at today's bar. If we get another bar tomorrow like that, it spike us up here and then continue going down. So that's when we're moving stop losses like that. That is something that you have to be aware of. Now I would like one more selling day, and then we could put it there. Absolutely. I would like one more selling day before I move it. Or if it gets close to my 3-to-1, if it gets close to the 3-to-1, I might actually par close it. I might actually par close that trade. So we also had a trade set up on the German DAX. So we also had a trade set up in the German DAX. It had a phase 1, phase 2, and then look, it's today's market continued to drop. Okay, so today's market, today's bar really confirms that is a winning trade. So we have to take profit here. Did anyone take that trade? And why I was taking is there's a floor, it broke and retested that floor to the downside. I got anyway, it's a really good trade. And that particular one was a 1.8 to 1. Now, if we'd have brought it down to here, to this floor, it was a 2.4. But put it back up to where it was right there. Well done, Hannibal took this trade. Now, if we have a look at this, see where we expect this to go. Okay, I was wondering for a second why I have that level there, but I have it here. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bounces off it. Then it breaks, it breaks, and it breaks. There also is a level exactly where we are right now. Touch there, there, there. We've really sort of zoned there that it keeps bouncing off of. Touch there and there. So we are at a sort of a little level. Now don't be surprised if by the end of the day we have quite a big wick on the end of this. Okay, so look at these two, we have a big wick on them. Don't be surprised if we have a little bit of a big wick on them on this one. Or alternatively, it's smashed through the floor. They would be the two sort of things I would expect to happen today. They're the two things I would expect to happen today is to potentially have a big wick here or smash through this, continue going. And that would be what I would expect to happen. Okay, because we are sitting on a little floor. The amount of people who will be looking at this and potentially buying it here on the smaller time frames. Back down to the 4 hour. And again, it's not a great bar either to be buying off of. It'll be interesting to see what happens on the next bar if it's an inside bar there. So if it's an inside bar, would you guys be looking to buy that off that floor, that double bottom? All the people who trade counter trend. Okay, now for me, it's a no. I wouldn't really be looking to do counter trend trades in this, but again, there is one there. There is one there. For me, there's more value in jumping in at the high up here and going with the trend than trying to see this counter trend. Why this bar is too? This bar is quite bullish. It's quite a big momentum on it. We've seen the same bar on the CAC, and similarly we've seen it on the UK 100 as well. So I don't expect to see much of a difference by the end of the day with what we've seen across the other markets. So this is across all three of them. The UK 100 hasn't hit that purple line yet. And it's pretty decent level through here. So we mightn't see a jump on that till the UK gets down to its level. Onto oil. I know some of you guys took this trade here as a buy. Again, it's not something that I would have taken or suggested to you guys. I know you guys are looking at this as a higher low. Someone said to me, can we off the trend line here? And he did, yes, you were triggered in. But I just don't see that popping up. I see a little more downside than upside on this. Natural gas is now popped down here onto this green line here. There is a black line just underneath it again. So again, these levels are not huge. 1, 2 touches, 3, the black one, and in this one we have that double top. So yes, we did have a bounce off it, and today we had this big selling bar again. So I'd actually would expect this to actually drop further. Why? Because the bounce that we had here was non-existent, and it looks like there's more sellers in this market at the moment. We dropped down to the 4-hour. Norwegian oil and gas worker strike will affect price over the next few weeks. Okay, yeah, eventually, Nigel. And if you are of thinking that that's gonna affect it, then we're looking for entries. We're looking for places where we can enter this market and actually take a short on it. Probably there because it hit this level here. So that would be the ideal scenario on, say, the 4-hour to be looking to trade that. Okay, so that's where we'd be looking for this if it continues dropping, which from what we see, we would expect it to. Nigel has popped up the actual article there as well. If anyone, Nigel or James, can pop that in the chat group as well in Discord, please. Wheat. So wheat, we wanted to come back and hit this, and it has just continued to fall, and it's falling at a huge rate of knots at the moment. And I don't see anything to hold it before its level here. I don't see any reason for this to stop before here. There's that double top, come back into that area. Again, is that a really strong level? No. Drop down onto the 4-hour. And again, on the 4-hour, we're seeing nothing either. I need to see some sort of pullback for us to get in on this. And that there would be the only sort of pullback that I can see at the moment. That may come back to there. Keep an eye on that if you're looking to trade it. Yeah, we'll come to copper now in a minute. Okay, so there's a really nice momentum down to the downside of this. We were looking for the pullback to here, it went, it didn't happen. We wanted to pull back into this level, it didn't happen. And the way it's moving, it's probably not going to pull back into this level either for us. But again, we can only set ourselves up, and if it happens, then we can trade off it. So it's down 2.24% today. So copper was something that we traded quite a lot. We traded there, we traded there. We had a couple of positions along this place here. It stopped trending, so we stopped trading it. And now look, it's trending again. The last webinar I did, we were looking at this to come back into this level here. And the touch there, we look to trade that short again. Only it didn't come back into that area. Didn't come back into that area first. Quantity there as well. interested to see how far copper will fall. Bear in mind, the whole world needs copper. And why does the whole world need copper at the minute? Can anyone tell me? It is the best conductor, so it's used for anything electrical. So the likes of electronic cars. So it's hugely involved in the battery pack of the electronic cars, which every manufacturer now sort of needs. And it takes 5 to 6 years for a copper mine to mature and get to a point where it starts producing copper. So let's see if this is when the bottom comes on this. But it's a bit like the other markets. If we think we're at the bottom of this, over the next 5 or 10 years, it could be worth buying or getting sort of an ETF with copper in it, or get an ETF with some of the copper suppliers in it and popping it into it, buying a little sort of bundle with them, if and when we think it's at the bottom. Okay, because we now know that it can hit the 4.88 level, and if it gets down into sort of these levels down here, is that now ready for a new burst of people buying it up again? And if it is, you may not want to trade on a CFD, or get some sort of ETFs, put it together, buy some stocks that mine this, that mainly mine it. Okay. Also, with cheap copper, isn't a great time for the likes of these semiconductor companies and the likes of communication companies, the likes of electrical cars? Isn't it a great time for them to buy copper up in bulk, isn't it? Okay. So FCX. I have no idea what FCX is. American International Mining Company, based in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm assuming, yeah, it looks identical to copper. I'm assuming their main export is copper. Copper and gold. Well, it depends. If gold gets cheap enough, we'll start seeing gold being put into cars and silver. Platinum. So we talked about this coming down, hitting the floor, and then popping back up, and it didn't. It didn't quite hit the floor, but then it went back up and hit the ceiling. So we sort of have this sideways going on here at the moment, over the last since September. Yes, we've had a couple of breakouts, and now we're having a breakout to the downside. Now we talked about this as being a potential buy off that level, and 1, 2, 3, and this was the 4th touch of it, and it went up, and then you would have been triggered out on the downside. So the idea now would be is get rid of that, and if we get some sort of pullback on this up to this level, we would then be looking for that to pop down to the downside. We have copper drop in, we have gold drop in, we have silver drop in, and no coincidence then at this, if the likes of this decided to drop as well. But we got a pullback here. Let's see what happens on the likes of this. Palladium. Palladium has sort of been, has sort of sat on this level, held its own. We talked about this as a, potential short here. Stop loss, entry, and it really hasn't moved anywhere since, has it? Barely made a 1-to-1, depending on where entry was. Make a 1-to-1, just slightly up. You probably would have been kicked out of that by the actual contract finishing. But again, it hasn't played out the way we wanted it. But again, we'd expect this to, with all the other metals dropping, there is a probability that this will continue dropping, isn't there? The metal market seems to be dropping. So let's see what happens on this one. Is this a great entry? No. And this is assuming today's bar is finished. Assuming today's bar is finished. So entry above it, stop loss below it. But again, it's not something that I would take. It's not something I would take. There's no support and resistance. There's no level. We're literally just taking it because I literally couldn't map there because we have copper and gold, silver. They've all dropped. Nickel. Nope, not as probably charts anymore. We've done that already. Again, coca had a really sort of nice level. And again, has broken that sort of level that we have there. Put in some sort of segments here. We do have that. And we also have that horizontal. So question would be, looking at those two levels, would you trade off the horizontal or would you wait for it to come back and hit the trend line and short the market? Which of those two do you think would be a better level to trade off of? Which of those two levels do you think is better, the horizontal or the trend line? Okay, so for me, the level that is stronger is the horizontal. And why it's stronger is because we've had two really recent touches here. But I can see it coming back to this trend line as well. I would place an order. I wouldn't be having a really tight stop loss. I'm placing an order, hopefully that I wouldn't be triggered in. And then it continued back to this trend line here. So I would be placing a trade there, depending on the price action that I get at that particular point. But could come back to this level here and then continue to drop. But both of those are valid. So Bitcoin has not done much since its recent drop. Hasn't done much there. As you can see, I have an order here at 13.2. If it pops down there, I will get triggered in. But as you can see, move sideways, then it had a pop to the downside. It moved sideways, had a pop to the downside. So move sideways, and you sort of expect some sort of pop to the downside, wouldn't you? The question is, if we are trading this as a CFD, if you have a broker which is outside the UK, is that your stop loss there? Stop loss above the previous high, which is 21.7. The entries below there. If it breaks the downside, then you're in this trade. Well, there's probably a 1.2, 1.3 to 1 on that. Quick look. Measure. So from there to there is 19%. Down to that level is 30%. So 1.5 to 1 at that level. Does anyone expect anything else to happen or not? Does anyone else expect this to pop to the upside? Down closer to 10K. I'm the same, I don't see. It might even go to 3K before we start seeing buyers jump back into it again. But again, we will see this recover. Now, to what extent, I have no idea. Will it make a higher high or then the all-time high? But again, we will see this rise again, slowly but surely. Is there anything that anyone wants to go through in particular? Yep, we'll have a look at Oxy. We look at ADA. It keeps sort of hitting this floor. It keeps hitting this floor and it's just bouncing away there. Let's see if it holds. So yes, I bought it the other day. I'm down £1.50 on 100 quid invested. Do I see value in it? So this is where I see the value. Is here. This is where I see a little bit of value in this. Now, without doing any research on this, do we think the earnings should be good or should be bad? Now, haven't done any research on it, but do we think the earnings will be good or bad? Should be brilliant. But if you think this is going to have good earnings, isn't everyone and their mother looking at the likes of oil companies? And we could see this run to $80 or $90 if this has a good earnings. But again, only time will tell. It'll literally come down to what the earnings and revenue is coming out. But you'd expect it to be good. I don't see for any reason why it shouldn't be good, and that's why I bought it. I can see it breaking this high here. But again, I've been wrong before and will continue to be wrong with trades. But that's what I would expect with sort of the oil companies. And I have jumped in this trade. Now again, where do I think this will go to? I don't know. While this oil crisis is continuing, I will hold on to these. Till the market is then flooded again with oil, then I may jump out of these stocks. But like I said, the likes of this. But at the present moment in time, I'm happy to hold on to it. It's the best performing stock in my portfolio at the moment. Was it 400 or 500% up? And just let it run, let it continue. Yes, I'm £1.50 down, but again, let this market run. I don't see any reason when the earnings coming out on the 3rd of August, literally in a month's time, I don't foresee any real problems with earnings unless the war stops. I don't see oil stocks dropping, as in the stock and the companies, rather than the actual the underlying assets itself. I don't see the value in the oil companies, whether it's ExxonMobil, whether it's Shell, whether it's Oxy, whether it's PetroChina. I don't see any reason for any of those to drop unless something is massively wrong on the board at management level. Does anyone think otherwise? Has anyone got a different argument here to what's been said? If you have, I would love to hear it. But I don't see any reason for the likes of any of these oil companies not to be making money at the moment, unless they get fines, unless something really sort of silly happens on their board. Okay, everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for listening to that webinar. And I will speak to you, most of you, I will speak to you on Wednesday, tomorrow night. If not, I will speak to the rest of you on Tuesday. See you later. Bye-bye.